Hey everyone, Fina here from Fina Reads. Welcome to my next review of one of the SPSFC2 Team Dragons in Space quarterfinalists. Say that 3 times fast, man. And this time I'm talking about Clown's First Contact by Peter Cawdron. And if you want to have some nightmares for some time, check out this cover. This clown is the creepiest thing I've ever seen in my life. Especially, I don't know how good it comes on at the camera, but if you look at the eyes, if I look at this guy if I look at one eye, I think his eyes are closed. And if I look in the other eye, the eyes are open and he's staring at me. I mean, that's the creepiest thing ever. I will talk again about just the summary of what this book is, and then a little bit about the world building, the characters, the writing style, what I liked about it, who I think this book is for. Before I dive into the summary, one thing that I want to mention is that Peter Cawdron wrote like 30 or 40 books that all deal with first contact. So that seems to be just something he is generally interested in, because all of his book deal with different, like he thinks through different ways on how first contact with an alien race could go. And this is one of the latest ones. And I will start with reading you the description. First contact occurred a decade ago with a traveling circus in the high-altitude desert plateau of Uzbekistan. The US government has been covertly monitoring extraterrestrial activity around Earth since then, but has struggled to make contact. They've kept tabs on the circus and its founder Basta al-Hashimi. 4 years ago, Basta returned to the US to start a counterculture group called the Clowns, challenging the socio-political status quo in America. Clowns ask the question, what would an extraterrestrial intelligence think about our intelligence? So the book itself could be set in today's time. Like when you start reading it and just start getting into the story, there's nothing futuristic about it. It feels like today's life with today's type of characters, and the first contact aspect actually doesn't come into play till later in the book. So that was something that I thought was really interesting, because when I read sci-fi in the past, it was either you were like very obviously in the future because there was future tech or something going on, even if it was not a space opera type book, but like more a mystery thriller type book. There were always very obvious futuristic technology or something else going on. Not so in this book. So it could be set right now with characters that live right now and then. And we just have had a first contact situation a couple of years ago that people kind of know, kind of don't. It's very, very vague. The reason why this book, at least from my perspective, moved into the quarterfinalist is the very strong first chapters. He throws you into a scene and it is so action-packed and so fast-paced that you're just sitting there like, what is going on here? And then he moves into the second chapter, introducing the second main character with a similar situation. You are in the middle of the scene, and the second main character is explaining you what's going on and is giving you details, but it is so fast-paced and so action-rich that you're just like, what? They are very different, like two scenes that are completely different from each other, and they are just so... what? That you're like, I need to know what is continuing. So this is a great book that pulls you in immediately and just doesn't want to let you go, and you just want to keep on reading. Like the pace really is fast, and like constantly things are happening where you're just sitting there like doubting yourself and doubting the characters, and oh my god. So it's very action-packed. It's very much like a thriller type situation where just a lot of stuff is happening. Because it is a more thriller sci-fi type book, it's also that why you don't get overwhelmed with detail from a world building perspective, you get still a lot that you can puzzle the pieces together, and that you get an understanding of, okay, why are we even here? What's the motivation behind the story, etc. From a character perspective, you have 2 very strong female characters that come from 2 very different surroundings and have 2 very different backgrounds. They all of a sudden are thrown together and have to figure the situation out that they're in. And it is very interesting to see how they're dealing with it and how they are getting closer and getting together. Having said that, though, I think the characters are one of the weaker things in this book, because all of the characters, not just the 2 main female characters, but like the vice president, other people in the Secret Service, the clowns that we get to meet, they start to become very similar in the sense of when you read through the dialogues, the way those people talk and the words the people use and the way that they are just interacting with each other is very similar from character to character. So unfortunately, that what I found is one of the weaknesses of the book, is that the characters are themselves not distinguishable from each other if you just listen through the dialogue. From an action perspective and the background that you're getting throughout the story, yes, of course, they are coming from different areas and you learn about their motivation. It's just the way they talk is very, very similar across all characters. Which brings us to the writing style. The first thing that I want to mention is he loves the word hell of a, and he uses it a lot. Kindle tells me 14 times throughout the books, but it felt much more just because the word was, for me, spelt weirdly. I don't know if that is a typical thing or if that is a slang thing in the US. Again, I'm not. English is not my first language, so sometimes those are things I struggle with. But I found it very annoying at one point because it's not a typical word. And again, it was used by different characters. So to the point of the characters talked all the same way, this word and this unique spelling was used by different characters throughout the book. It felt off, and because it's such a unique word, it just, I just realized that. From a writing style, it fits this type of story again, right? It is a very fast-paced type of sci-fi thriller, and the writing really fits. We have a lot of action-packed scenes, we have fighting scenes in there. One of the main characters is amazing at just protecting herself, but similar to the word hell of a, those action scenes start to repeat themselves, and it gets to a point where it's like, okay, we had that scene. It was very similar, and it's written very similar. But besides the use of the word halava, his writing is really good. I like the way he structured the sentences. I like the way he made them flow and just explained everything. So I didn't think it was over the top or, mellow. It was actually really entertaining, and I just enjoyed the way he explained things and described things. So from that perspective, I really enjoyed this book. Now that I've talked a little bit about world building and writing, let's get to who I think this book is for and kind of pros, cons of the book. Everything that you've heard in the description and that I've said so far really sounds like an action-packed sci-fi thriller. And at a high level, that's what this book is about. If you start getting into the story and start realizing what everything is about, what the clowns are about, what the whole first contact situation is about, you realize it's more about social justice than sci-fi thriller. So sci-fi thrillers for me are more on the entertainment level, right? It's higher level. You don't get too deep into specifics. This is, I don't think, the purpose of this book. It's very clear that he wants to bring a message across that is capitalism, that is just how society works, how superficial the world is. And he is very obvious on which side he is on. So if that is not your thing, I have a feeling this book might not be the right thing for you. If you don't mind it as much, or if you actually appreciate those topics, then this is a really great example of the execution of that. Because I love how he mixed sci-fi thriller, those social justice topics, sprinkled in a little bit of horror every now and then, and made it a really cohesive story that doesn't feel like preachy. Not too much there. It goes onto the boundaries of preachies, but he comes down again, and when he realizes that he's going too far, it is still the focus of it is still the story itself and the first contact itself. So from that perspective, it was really, really interesting. In addition, if you're a fan of hard sci-fi and you want to read about futuristic technology or, the big alien encounter, you will not get that here either. So it is very light, I find, on the sci-fi topic. On the other hand, though, that means this is actually a good book if you want to dip your toes into sci-fi and you're scared of that hard sci-fi stuff. That would be a good one to start because it is more on the thriller level than on any kind of sci-fi, hard sci-fi, futuristic space opera, any of those type of things. And which I think makes it also a rather unique sci-fi book. Personal opinion, and again, this is just how I am as a reader and what I like as a reader. I loved the beginning. Like the first third of the book was definitely the strongest part for me. I can link down below the live reading sprints that we did where this was one of them, and where we talked about, after we read the first 2 chapters, where we talked about what we thought and what we were thinking was happening, and you could see that we all were so sucked into this story at this point that we just had to know how it continues. My expectations were different. I thought this book would be about something else. I didn't expect it to be so much about politics and social justice and those kind of things. So that threw me off a little bit. Again, not that I mind that in my books. I was just not prepared for it. And I didn't, it was just more the expectation rather than that the book was bad or anything. And then because I am a character-driven reader, the thing that didn't work as well for me either was the lacking character development and that they at one point just sounded all the same. But like, that's it. I really enjoyed the writing style. I really enjoyed how he was setting the scenes. I enjoyed that he had two strong female characters that came with their, historic packages and how he worked through that and what he explained about them. I found that very interesting. So overall, I think it is a really good book. Now that you know a little bit better what it is about, I think it will really help with the reading experience because, again, from the description and from the initial chapters, that was not what I was expecting. But I think if you go in with that expectation, it is a really enjoyable book. I hope you enjoyed this review. I hope you're checking out the other reviews from all the teams that are part of SPSFC and from all the quarterfinalists that all those teams have selected across SPSFC. I will be working on my next review shortly. And then I'll see you soon with my next video. Thank you. Bye.